People around here at Southridge Church, do we not? Amen. Amen. All right. I love that our kids are in here. Kids, I want you to give me your biggest yell on the count of three so we can get that over with. Ready? 1, 2, 3. There we go. Every once in a while here at Southridge Church, we like to bring our kids in with us. I think it's important that they see their moms and their dads and their grandparents worshiping the Lord, so the way they have an example to follow. And so, kids, stay with me. I got plenty of stuff for you. In fact, because you're in here, go ahead and raise your hand, because I know all the old people, they might not know this. How many of you all watch Mr. Beast? Anybody in here YouTube fans, Mr. Beast? I know everyone that's over 25 or 30 is like, what? All right, for those of us that don't know who Mr. Beast is, he's a very famous YouTuber, actually probably the biggest in the world. He actually got so big at making YouTube videos that Amazon Prime this last year decided to give him his own game show, and he ended up giving away $10 million to the winner. It was the biggest cash prize in game show history. It was also the largest amount of people to ever participate in a game show. 1,000 contestants. You can still watch it on Amazon Prime. One of the ways, when you only have 10 episodes, but you have 1,000 people, you got to get rid of people really fast to get down to the meat of the competition. So early on, there was a game that these people had to play where they had to stack different sized blocks and different shaped blocks into a tower, and they didn't have a whole lot of time to think about strategy or anything like that. And so there were all these different shapes, and the goal was you had 10 minutes to build some sort of tower, and if your tower fell over, the first 100 towers that fell over were finished. It wasn't like it fell over and you got to start over again. If you built a tower that did not last and it fell over, you lost your chance at $10 million. By losing a game that, let's be honest, we have been preparing for since we were really little. But like, if you look at my tower here, I'll just be honest, if I was really trying to build a tower, I might not want this piece right here. This is kind of an awkward piece to build a tower on. To be honest, I would probably like to start over if I could. I would probably like a fresh start if this was the tower that I was building. Now, how many of us, maybe you've been in a place in your life where you realized, I've been building my life, but truth be told, if I had a chance, I'd probably place some pieces a little differently because the tower that I'm building looks like it might fall over. And honestly, let's just be honest, some of us, we've been around long enough, our tower has done fallen over. And maybe we've been rebuilding, and some of us, we go, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know what to do. Like, let's be honest, the people whose tower fell over on Beast games lost $10 million. But some of us, our towers toppled over and we lost marriages, we lost our kids, we lost finances, we lost a job, we lost our health, we lost our joy, we lost our peace. Yeah. We've lost all sorts of things because we build towers that will not last. We lose a whole lot more than $10 million. If we're being honest. And tonight I want to talk to you about the topic of starting over, because I think there are some people that show up at church around this time of year, and to be honest, they're throwing a last-ditch effort that their tower has already collapsed. And they're going, I just really hope if I show up that maybe God has something for me. This is my last ditch effort. My tower has fallen over. My life is a wreck. I don't know where to turn from here. Maybe this church thing has something to offer. And if that's you, I've got something for you tonight. Because to be honest, I could stand here, I could give you the real short version, and I'd go, yes, there's the ability for you to start over. There's an ability for you to get a fresh start. But then most of us, because we're human, and I understand this just like anyone else, even though we know that there's a fresh start in front of us, that there is a way to begin again, to start over, a lot of us, because we're the one that built the tower that fell over, don't feel like we actually deserve it. Most of us feel like, no. See, I placed this silly looking block there. It fell over. That's my fault. I made that choice. I sent that message. I went down that path. They told me not to. I did it anyways, and everything crumbled over. And so I don't even think that I deserve to start over. I don't even think, like, why me? What have I ever done that would give me the reason to be able to start over? Shouldn't I have to live with the decisions that I've made? And on some level, yeah, we're going to have to deal with the fallout and the consequences, but it doesn't mean that we can't start over. Now, this is, I'm certain that you know this because you showed up tonight. This is Good Friday. This is where we talk about, can we get my lights on the crosses, please? This is where we talk about the cross. Good Friday. And so the most natural place for me to talk to you about the cross is clearly from the Old Testament prophet Jonah. Did anyone else think that we were going there tonight? No? Okay, well, I wanted to maybe choose something I think would be familiar to our kids, since our kids are in here with us. But if you're not familiar, Jonah is an Old Testament prophet. Here's his story, beginning in Jonah chapter 1, verse 1. It'll be up on the screens for you. The Lord gave this message to Jonah, son of Amittai: get up and go to the great city of Nineveh, announce my judgment against it, because I have seen how wicked its people are. Here's what's happening. God is giving a command to the prophet Jonah to go to a very wicked and vile city to preach judgment. Some of us, we would not be too upset to get the assignment to go preach a happy message to people. Right? If, Lord, can I send them a message of hope? Can I send them a message of your love and of your grace? And he goes, no, listen, these people, they need a message of my coming judgment. Now, Nineveh is one of the key Assyrian cities at this time, 500 miles northeast of where Jonah begins. Now, you might be thinking, what's the big deal? Isn't this kind of what the prophets did? Didn't they kind of go and speak on behalf of God and announce judgment? Why does Jonah not seem real interested in this assignment? It seems like the type of thing that he should be into. Here's what you need to know about the Assyrians that lived in Nineveh. They were worldwide famous for their violence. Their wickedness was known everywhere. So it's like, hey, Jonah, will you go and speak to the scariest people on the face of the earth and tell them that God's going to destroy them? Like, no, we don't want that assignment. Listen, I was still getting messages about Easter 2024 up until fall this year, okay? Sometimes God gives you a message and people don't want to hear it. If you go, what does he talk about Easter 2024? Don't worry, it's on YouTube. Forever. Not quite as big as Mr. Beast, but if you want to know what I was talking about, you can go back. Like, because sometimes when we're going to speak on behalf of God, he tells us, hey, you get to go share the happy messages. And so sometimes you got to go and share the difficult messages. So I probably would have been too thrilled either. So here's how Jonah responds. Jonah gets up and went in the opposite direction to get away from the Lord. He went down to the port of Joppa, where he found a ship leaving Tarshish. He bought a ticket and went on board, hoping to escape from the Lord by sailing to Tarshish. Here's what's happened. I told you Nineveh was about 500 miles northeast of where Jonah currently was. He buys a boat ticket, gets onto a boat headed to the area of Tarshish, which is 2,000 miles in the opposite direction. He could not have been heading any further away from where God had called him to be. He literally runs in the opposite direction. Anybody in here, can you relate? Anybody here, you go like, I know better than the choices that I've made. I knew better than the choices that I'm currently living. I'm currently headed in the opposite direction, or I went through a season where I was headed in the opposite direction, even though I knew better. And I know a lot of you think, man, he's talking to me. I'm actually telling you my story. See, I had everything you could imagine as a kid growing up in church to not fall off the rails. I was raised in church. I had a drug problem growing up. I was drugged to church every time the doors were open. Every single time. Listen, I've told y'all this before. Our church, we used to have Sunday school, Sunday morning. Sometimes they'd have a lunch, like a little intermission, then a gospel concert, then church that night. And we lived on the church property, so we couldn't skip. We always had to be there. I got to go to San Antonio in second grade for Bible quizzing with people from all around the world. I was so good at Bible quizzing. I had no reason whatsoever to turn my back on God, but that's exactly what I did. Wanted nothing to do with God, and I slowly start to walk away, and then at some point I pick up the pace and begin, just like Jonah, to run in the opposite direction. And that's exactly my story. I'll tell you how it finishes here in a bit. But verse 4 tells us this, but the Lord, he's on the boat, he's headed away, hurled a powerful wind over the sea, causing a violent storm to threaten to break the ship apart. So how many of you've experienced this? That when you decide to take life into your own hands, you end up smack dab in the middle of a storm. You decide to, I know God wants it to go this way, but we're not going to listen to what God wants. We're going to do what I want to do, and because you did what you wanted to do, and because I did what I wanted to do, we ended up right in the midst of a storm. Right in the middle of it. Going, yeah, this is what happened. Now, here's I'm going to shorten the rest of the story for you. Here's what starts to happen. In this mindset of these sailors, when stuff like this happens, the belief would have been somebody on board has done something to cause this storm. So they begin to go around to everyone on the boat. Is it you? Is it you? Did you turn your back on God? Did you turn your back on God? Are you the reason why we're all about to perish? Are you the one that made the choice? On and on and on. And all the men, it's no one. Except for there's this stranger that we picked up that's currently sleeping in the boat. So they wake Jonah up, and they go, Jonah, perhaps did you offend the gods somehow? And Jonah has to come clean. He goes, yeah, I'm the guilty party. I'm the one responsible for all of this. And so here's what Jonah tells him to do. He says, yeah, it's me. Now we're out in the middle of the ocean. You know, Jonah started to build a tower that was quickly not going to make it. So he goes, here's what you can do. Just take me in the middle of the ocean, throw me overboard. He's essentially going, you know what? I've messed up so bad, my life's not even worth living. I'm finished. I don't even know where to turn from here. You know that you interact with people every single day probably that feel like that. They're like, man, I'm just finished. I've messed up too much. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go from here whatsoever. And so he tells them, he says, just throw me into the ocean. Now I wonder, before this happens, like if you know the rest of the story, they're definitely going to throw him in the ocean. They don't know this guy at all, so they have no reason to go, oh, no, buddy, it'll be okay. They don't know him at all. We're like, no, we're definitely throwing this guy in the ocean. Now, I wonder before they did that, though, if Jonah had a moment where he went, you know, it would have been a lot easier to just do what God told me to do in the first place. It would have been a lot easier before we got out here in the middle of the ocean and all this craziness is happening and now people's lives are being threatened. It would have been a lot easier to just go and deal with the Ninevites in Assyria It would have been way easier to do that. I wonder if there's a moment where Jonah went, you know what, it'd be great if there was a start over button on this boat where we could just rewind the tape back to where I'm back where I'm supposed to be, God tells me to do it, and I go and do it. I bet there was a moment, because I know in my story, there's been tons of moments where I go, you know what, I wish that I could just do that over again. I wish that I could go back and listen to my Sunday school teachers. I wish I could go back and listen to the preachers. I wish I could go back and listen to my mom and dad. I wish I could go back and listen to the Lord and the Bible that was implanted in me from I wish I could go back and save myself all the heartache, all the pain, all the years wasted, all the poor decisions, all the people that I hurt, and all the hurt I caused myself. I wish that I could have just hit that button and gone back. But unfortunately, there wasn't a button available on the boat to Jonah. So they throw him overboard, and right at the end of chapter 1, it just has this one verse. It says, now the Lord had arranged for a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was inside the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Which is a really weird, like if you're just reading this for the first time, you go, that's not what I expected. Now, here's what, until you really study the book of Jonah, you actually miss this. What happened between we're going to throw this guy off the boat and God sent a fish to pick him up, there was actually a lot that happened in between that you don't find out until you study Jonah chapter 2. Jonah chapter 2 is the prayer of Jonah that tells what he has just gone through. Here it is, Jonah chapter 2, beginning of verse 1 says this, then Jonah prayed to the Lord his God from inside the fish. He said, I cried out to the Lord in my great trouble, and he answered me. I called to you from the land of the dead, and Lord, you heard me. You threw me into the ocean depth, and I sank down into the heart of the sea. The mighty waters engulfed me. I was buried beneath your wild and stormy waves. Here's what happened. When Jonah, when I heard this story growing up, here's exactly what I thought happened. That I thought God had those guys pick Jonah up, chuck him overboard, and that fish got him before he ever hit the water. That's what I thought. I thought God had really good aim, just like right into the fish's mouth, and Jonah went from the boat to the fish. But what chapter 2 tells us is that Jonah experienced the weight of the waves getting ready to crush him. In fact, some theologians think that Jonah actually died. He says, I cried out to you from the land of the dead. Have you ever found yourself in the middle of the storm and then you feel the waves of the world just about to crush you? Like it's just overwhelming you, everything that you have, and it's wave upon wave upon wave. That's what he's going through, and that's what you and I have probably all been through. I've been there. I remember laying in my bed a week before I got saved, feeling like an elephant was sitting on my chest. Going like, I don't know how much longer I can go on like this. I don't know how much longer I can go on like this. Things are just too bad. And so I felt that weight before. So the prayer goes on. You can read the rest of the prayer, but we get it. The fish comes in the middle of Jonah's distress and swallows him up. Now, again, the other misconception I had about the story of Jonah, other than the fact that he didn't go straight from the boat into the fish, I always thought, and I've even early on in ministry, I would tell people that the fish or the whale, whatever you grew up hearing, that was God's punishment for Jonah not doing what he was supposed to do in the first place. I thought that it was his punishment. So I'm thinking, you know what sounds pretty terrible? Sitting in the belly of a gigantic fish. I'm pretty sensitive to smells. I know I wouldn't like it. I've got a bad gag reflex. I don't want to sit in no fish. It epitomizes rock bottom. I always thought that the fish was God's judgment upon Jonah for his disobedience. Here, after I've now studied what I have come to realize about the story of Jonah, is that the fish was not God's punishment. It was God's means of grace to come and to save the man that was drowning. The man that had given up on life, was ready to throw the towel in, who was possibly dead or on the verge of dying, and God sends a fish to swallow him up, bring him back to life, and get him back to where he was always meant to be. It was a means of grace all along. Jonah's tower had fallen over, but because the fish came and swallowed him up, he was allowed to begin to build a new tower. He was spit back onto dry land. He was given another chance. He was allowed to start over. And the reason why we started with the story of Jonah is because the story of Jonah reminds me of another amazing story of rescue. Another one where someone was feeling the weight of the world getting ready to crush them. See, we left, if you attended our Holy Week Seder, I left you at the Last Supper. And after the Last Supper, Jesus goes out to the Garden of Gethsemane, where he's arrested. He's put on trial. They falsely accuse him. He's beaten within inches of his life. And then on that Friday, they drive nails through his forearms, right through this big median nerve right there. On both sides, drive a nail through his feet and fasten him to a cross. An innocent man. See, the difference between Jonah and Jesus was Jonah was not innocent. Jesus was fully innocent when he went to that cross. Fully innocent. Not guilty. But the text tells us in Luke chapter 23 that as he hung there, he was hung in between two criminals. It says these two criminals had very different ways of interacting with Jesus. And the way that we see them interact are the two choices that you actually have. If you're in a similar place like Jonah, where your life is crashing down, your tower is falling over repeatedly, and you're going, I don't know what to do, you really only have two choices. Here's what happened. One of the criminals, again, these are two men that had made a mess of their life. One of the criminals hanging beside him scoffed. So you're the Messiah, are you? Prove it by saving yourself and save us too while you're at it. So the first criminal, here's your option. I'm only in it for self-preservation. I'm only really in, I don't really care who this guy is. I'm going to continue to mock him. I'm going to continue to call him names. I'm going to continue to curse him. I don't want if he has a plan for my life, I'm not interested. But then there's another guy on the other side of him. The other criminal protested, don't you even fear God? He's telling to the other guy, when you've been sentenced to die, we deserve to die for our crimes. But this man hasn't done anything wrong. And then he looks at Jesus and says, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus replied, I assure you that today you'll be with me in paradise. Another Jonah-type situation, two choices to make. And the one guy goes, you know what, I'm not going to change my mind. I'm going to continue to do things my own way, even if it ends in my demise. The other man sees an opportunity in Jesus, the man on the middle cross hanging there. He sees his opportunity to start over, to have a fresh start. That's what he sees when he looks there. Essentially, what I'm trying to tell you tonight, church, is that the big fish and the cross are telling the same story. They're telling of how you start over, how through God's grace, through God's mercy, you can start over. If your tower has fallen, kids in here, listen, I want you to look at me, kids, real quick. If you, at any point in your life, feel like your life is going off the rails and that you're building a life that things just keep going on and it keeps falling, I want you to know that because of what the man on that middle cross did for you, you can always start over. You never have to give up. No matter what you have done, you can always start over. He's never, listen, kids, teenagers, adults, God is not finished with you. He is not mad at you. He's not looking to get even with you. He's already done everything necessary for you to start over. They're telling the same story. And I know, honestly, if you think about it, though, the guy that looks at Jesus, he's screwed up his whole life. He's now getting exactly what he deserves. And you mean to tell me that he's going to get in just because he looked at Jesus and said, when you come into your kingdom, will you remember me? He didn't do anything to deserve it. And some of us, we reject Jesus because we go, I didn't do anything to deserve it. I made a mess of things. I don't deserve it. I don't know if you're friends with me. This past week on Facebook, I shared a video of a pastor named Alistair Begg. And he said, could you imagine watching the guy that repented on the cross? Could you imagine when he shows up in eternity and he starts to paint this picture? He says there'll be an angel there and they'll go, like, were you baptized? And the guy goes, no. Well, did you take a class? No. Do you know about justification by faith? No, I've never. What about the Bible? Have you read? Surely you've read the Bible. He goes, no, I've never heard of these things. And he said, well, wait a second. Let me go get my supervisor. Because there might have been a clerical error. I don't know how you got in here. So he goes to get the supervisor angel. The supervisor angel comes back and he asks more questions. He finally gets fed up and he looks at the man on the cross and said, by what means are you supposed to be here? And the answer is so simple because it's the same for you. He said, because the man on the middle cross said, I can come. He said, I can come. Not that I was good enough, not that I had done anything worth his love. He said I could come. That's right. It's all because of what he did on that first Good Friday. And that because of what he did on that Good Friday, but we know, just like Jonah had a new chapter and I had a new chapter when I knelt down at that altar right there, gave my life to Jesus, never been the same. I had a new chapter. Jesus was doing everything necessary for you to have a new chapter, to start over, to be made new. And it was not because you earned it, not because you were good enough for it, not because you did anything. It's all because of what the man on the middle cross did. But the beautiful thing is, this isn't our final service this weekend, is it? Because we're going to show up on Sunday morning because there was also another chapter in this story. Yeah. Yeah, there's another chapter. See, the reason why they call Good Friday good is because Sunday is coming. Because it did not finish at the cross in pain and sorrow and sadness. If Jesus hit the reset button for all of creation through his resurrection, he can do it in your life also. You can start over. There's nothing you've ever done or could ever do that could disqualify you from the grace and the mercy of Jesus. There's nothing that's holding you back other than you. You get to choose what man hanging beside Jesus. Because all of us in this room at one point or the other, we were criminals, we were guilty, and we should have lost our lives for it. And yet, we have a way to be made new.